I am super sleepy. Just did not get enough sleep last night. And late getting this done, but we're just going to bang it out. It's going to be amazing. I'm going to pull it all together. Hey, gang, it's Mishka here again. Surprise, still me. Yeah, it's been a crazy week, crazy 10 days. The last week was actually crazy enough that I had to sort of split it into two headers. So I covered like my crazy day of doing the moth, getting in a car accident, and reconnecting with my old friend Rich Roll. And then that weekend, I ended up having this like sort of. I ended that day just sort of completely frazzled, and kept getting this sort of lingering aftershocks of trauma of the car accident sort of over the next couple of days. But I did a thing. The car that I wrecked was a Honda Element that I was actually in the process of selling because I had gotten a new one. One year less old. I traded in my 2005 for a 2006, and I was in the process of fixing up the 2006, and I was waiting on two bolts to get it fixed so that I could drive that one. So Thursday, the night of my accident, I was driving the old one because I didn't have those two bolts, and I totaled the old Element, the one that I was trying to sell. And then the next day, the two bolts I'd been waiting for showed up, and I was able to fix the other one and get it up and running and on the road, which is so weird because you go back and forth with an accident saying, was I lucky? Was I unlucky? Definitely unlucky. I was in the accident, lucky no one was hurt, and also on a surface level, just lucky that I was driving the old car, the one I was about to get rid of, and not the new one, the one I'd just gotten. So I sort of took the weekend off to just get out, and I went car camping with my dog, which is not really something that I've done here. I mean, it's been a long time, maybe 2017 or 2018 since I camped with my family on the way up to Saskatchewan, but it's been a long time where I just sort of like drove out to the middle of nowhere and then hung out. So a lot of layers to it because since I've been in Arizona, I've just sort of spent so much time in my house watching TV, cursing Arizona, and not getting out there to see what the state had to offer. For a minute there, I was flirting with moving to Ohio, and that got me thinking about like, man, I've been in Arizona for a long time and I haven't done any Arizona shit. So the new vehicle has all-wheel drive, so I actually got out there. I mean, hey, you know what? Arizona's beautiful, especially this time of year. And also I'm out of practice at camping because I was like really excited to get out there and put a bunch of stuff aside for the camping trip and then just left it all on the kitchen counter. And one of the things I left on the kitchen counter was a frying pan. And so while I was out there camping and just sort of, I mean, it looked like a Jeep commercial out there, just these like beautiful vistas surrounded by mountains on all sides. It was so beautiful, and Sadie was like splashing around the water and having so much fun. Forgot the dog food, forgot the frying pan, forgot the sleeping bags, there's no way to deal with this except to say it. I shot a rabbit. And then because I didn't have the frying pan, I cooked it in a shovel over an open fire. And I don't know, now I'm the mayor of Hooverville. I don't know what the fuck that means. I feel it's like some weird white trash hillbilly haiku. Like I just unlocked some new level of hobodom, heretofore untapped. I don't know. I impressed even myself. Also, fucking delicious. I don't know how I did it. It was like blackened in a shovel with Spite Spice. And, came out amazing. Then just froze our asses off. It is not really warm enough for camping yet. But yeah, it was an incredible weekend. Let's get into this right now. I guess the intro for my guest today. there is no theme to this podcast. The uniting theme is that these are people who I'm a fan of, people who I want you to know about, who I want the world at large to know about, and my friends. And the reason I wanted to have Kristen Becker on the show is because she's my friend, and also because I'm a fan of her. I'm a fan of her comedy. I'm a fan of her work. I'm a fan of how she moves through the world, up to and including occasionally fighting with me. That's how I tell my best friends, is that we fight with each other sometimes. But Becker is she's really done something remarkable, from sort of the small seed of an idea of, she lives in Provincetown. She's from the South. Just this idea of, what if we took LGBTQ kids from the South, where it's exceptionally hard to be queer, and give them a summer in Provincetown where they can feel loved, accepted, celebrated, part of a community, and then that sort of tiny little idea of, we'll get a couple of kids up to P-Town to work for the summer, has really just sort of blossomed into a really incredible thing. It went from a Kickstarter for one summer to now someone gifted them a almost $4 million home, so that they can do this every year. And just, let's call it what it is. Go out there and change lives. It's such a great idea, and I don't know, I've been thinking about it so much since we did this podcast and sort of marveling at it. A very popular Instagram post is one about Haraith, which is a Welsh word, about, sort of longing for one's home, a home that may or may not have existed, and what's funny is that I think that's a universal feeling. I remember hearing the song, This World Is Not My Home, performed by David Dondero, and it just sort of like striking a chord in me, that so many of us feel like we're misfits or outsiders, or we don't belong, or we're caught between worlds. And I'm a straight white man. I'm a fountain of privilege. Jesus, if I don't belong, I love like Guns N' Roses and trucks and shit like that. I like explosions. If I don't belong in America, where do I belong? Imagine being a young gay, lesbian, queer, trans kid in the South, and not just being of a culture, part of a culture that seeks to undo you, that tells you that you don't exist, that won't just not accept you. It doesn't accept that you're real, and then also seeks to actively destroy you. I wake up every morning and I go to Reddit and read the news while I'm drinking my coffee. And some of the shit that I'm reading, it's just like, in the last 10 years, The Onion has ceased to be funny because the news has become more of a parody than The Onion ever could be. And it's just so fun. I mean, especially with this, it's Wednesday, March 29th, as I'm recording this. It's trans people there has been a war on trans people, I don't know, for eternity. We hate what we don't understand. That's a thread that runs through humanity. But trans folks are at a 400% risk for serious crime, up to and including sexual assault, rape, death, and so it was sort of this covert war on trans people. And then now the Republican Party has really seized on that and made that their bread and butter, and is turning trans folks into a boogeyman. The BLM was a boogeyman, Antifa was a boogeyman, and then now it's like it's trans kids and it's drag shows, and it's fucking ridiculous. It's just like smoke and mirrors from the GOP of look at this so you don't see that we're systematically stripping you of your money, your livelihood, your rights, your life, your right to life. But I don't know. It's just gone over the top the last couple of years, and it's fucking disgusting, and it's really just heartbreaking. But I don't know. It's timely with this podcast. It was. I don't know why it's taken me so long to have Becker on. She's a perfect candidate for this podcast, and some of my friends are just sort of hidden in plain view. I don't approach this with any method. I just see somebody's tweet or Instagram post or something, and then I'm like, oh fuck, I got to have them on. But Becker and I really had a fantastic conversation about her journey and about the journey of Summer of Sass, which you can look up at summerofsass.org. It's not often that I shill for something other than people just buying my t-shirts, but if you have an extra $10 or $4 million kicking around, go over to summerofsass.org and pitch in. It's just an incredible thing that they're doing. They're showing people who have never felt home what home feels like, and that's pretty radical. Kristen Becker is also just funny as hell. Not everything we do in this life has to be beautiful or poignant. Sometimes it can just be fucking hilarious. But this is a good one. I'm really proud of this conversation. Please enjoy my conversation with my friend Kristen Becker.
Mishka Shabali is catching up with friends who are arguably more talented than him.
Before we go into any further into this filth, how are you? You said you're just getting over COVID?
Yeah, I got COVID. I'm okay. It was I'm still a little tired. I tested negative like 3 days ago. I don't know. I guess I was begging for it. I was due for a booster, but I thought I was living a pretty isolated life. But I had a bunch of stuff going on and definitely wasn't at peak immunity, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Is it your first time getting it, or?
No, I've had it once for sure confirmed and once suspected. But Katie can't now my girlfriend has it because we thought I had gotten it from her, so we didn't take precautions. Yep. And turns out that's not what she had at all. So but she saw the t-shirt, by the 10th infection all the mice are dead. Have you heard of this?
No.
So Katie comes to me while I have COVID, and she just goes, I saw this on Twitter, and it's just a guy who said his wife won't let him wear his t-shirt, and the t-shirt says, after the 10th infection, all the mice were dead. And it's a COVID thing, and I can't fucking stop thinking about it now. I'm just like, wait, how many infections have I had? How many years do I have left?
Well, I mean, I was just thinking that I finally found a way to get rid of the mice in my house.
Give them all COVID.
I'm a silver linings kind of guy. You know?
I like it.
It's the only thing that works.
There was something like, it's so like conspiracy theory fringy, but there's also something about it that I'm like, honestly, I'd like a nice round number to know what I'm working with. And I can base my caution and expedite my demise or prolong my life.
I mean, that's the thing about COVID that I think has been frustrating for those of us who sort of have a brain and are trying to move through this quagmire intelligently, is that, there's what we know to be true. And then also we have the creative brain that's like, man, it's way more interesting if it is like a super bug created by a lab in Wuhan where it's right? The nanobots, a weapon by the Chinese and like that shit's way more interesting. I get why people believe in conspiracy theories, because if your life is boring and you just go into conspiracy theories, everything is so much more interesting.
I just struggle with how the same people who are into conspiracy theories are also so unimaginative when it comes to their reality, right? Like they're like one man, one woman. Like what? Like the things you can come up with outside of like your real life and like let your brain expand in these quite frankly incredible ways, right? And then when you get to your reality, you're like, they all look like this. One's got an innie, one's got an outie. You put them into each other. That's it. No variations. Don't try any other holes. You know.
Yeah, yeah. Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. But also, have you heard about Area 51?
My new thing has been that the snake's name was Steve, right? Like that's my new thing now. Whenever anybody says Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, I was like, but what was the serpent's name? Definitely Steve.
That's good. That's solid. It's not the selective outrage that should piss us off. It's the selective creativity.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Open your mind.
Becker, how are you? I feel like the last time that you and I sat down for a conversation was one of the tables in the parking lot outside Altercation a year and a half ago.
This tracks. That's right. And I missed it this year, and I was sad. I will never miss it again.
It is like just the best, sort of, I almost said comedy daycare, comedy sleepaway camp ever. And the parking lot is its own vibe too. I have a hard time deciding where I want to be, because obviously you want to watch the comedy, but also we've all seen comedy, right? So like there's that need to socialize awkwardly with other people. Yeah.
That get it.
I feel like in order to do Altercation right, you have to be like 3 or 4 people and have one person in there watching for your new favorite comic, and then also out in the parking lot trading war stories with old friends, and then one of you staying up until 6 a.m, eating the acid, taking the Molly, whatever, and then another one of you to like just sleep.
Yes, that seems accurate.
It's a lot.
I think the last time I saw you, you had some mushrooms, I think, is what had happened.
That sounds accurate. That tracks.
I think that was because I don't think I'd ever seen you not. I don't think we'd ever encountered each other in such a way, and it was fun.
Yeah, it is. I feel like it's unsettling for people to just see me like sit there and grin.
I encourage it. I like it.
It's like if you saw Eeyore beatboxing or something like that, it just feels out of character. But I feel like you're such a hard worker, that you're always doing shit. You're always writing new stuff. You're always on the road performing, and then also doing crazy shit out there in P-Town.
Crazy shit. No, shit is crazy right now. There's definitely there's like never in a million years, I think somebody's going to be like, here's $3.7 million. See what you can do with it. Like it's next level. So yeah, we have a house now.
Let's dive into that. Tell the whole story from the sort of genesis of the idea too.
Yeah. So Summer of Sass is a not-for-profit that I founded about 5 years ago, going in year 6. And it was honestly born out of the Loosen the Bible Belt tour. So when I was on tour with Jay Bakker, pastor, I had this big idea to go through the South, and can we bring people together and make them have awkward experiences? Like the idea of bringing a pastor and like my dirty fisting jokes into a space was to get other humans into a space and have everyone be uncomfortable at a different time. Right? Like that is to me where the fucking magic happens. Because usually you get everybody of one genre with all their likes and all the people like them watching the things that they like, and they share these emotions together, right? Rarely do you have somebody from the other side or perceived not your team, whatever, if we're not picking sides, but not your team. And, they're uncomfortable while someone's praying. So lesbians my atheist friends get real uncomfortable when Jay's preaching, right? And then the Christian people get real uncomfortable when I'm telling my dirty lesbian jokes. And so you get the shared experience of being comfortable and being uncomfortable right next to somebody else. It's not like we split up the sides like it's a fucking wedding, right? Like people come in and they sit wherever they sit, and then you realize you're sitting next to someone who's very connected to the preaching, and then that person sitting next to somebody who's uncomfortable by the preaching but very connected by the dirty jokes, right? And so out of that,
Wait,
came while we were on tour. There was
let me stop you here
Yeah.
and just tell you what you already know to be true, which is that that's a fucking brilliant premise of bringing people together in moments of shared comfort and shared discomfort. It's so fucking smart.
Thanks. It's definitely something that that we knew based on the conversations that happened after the shows, right? Like it wasn't something I knew was going to happen. I wish I could say I was that smart. I knew that it was important to try to get people who might be closer to the middle than they thought to try to meet there, right? Like to start to motivate the moderates, because I wasn't shocked by Trump, right? Like if you lived in the South year round, we could see it coming, right? And so we were trying to build the bridges, motivate the moderates, like all the things that you're supposed to do to get the sane people to stand up, right?
Yep.
And so it was out of Loosen the Bible Belt that I was in Shreveport, which is where I went to high school in Louisiana. And it was my right around my 20th high school reunion. And there was an article about a kid who had to graduate high school early because he had been bullied so bad for being gay. And there was just something about it being 20 years since I had graduated and the story being the same, right? Like that, wow, nothing has changed here. This kid is telling my story. And had it not been around my 20th anniversary, maybe a reunion, high school reunion, I might not have it might not have connected, but it hit me pretty hard. And I knew that I was in a place where we needed summer workers. Like Provincetown is a wealthy queer vacation. I mean, everyone vacation destination. Cape Cod is for everybody, and P-Town gets a lot of wealthy LGBTQ tourists. And so I was like, let's bring these kids up here. Let's give them a summer to just be themselves, right? Like if you're the kid with purple hair in Tyler, Texas, or Grand Saline, Texas, everyone stares at you everywhere you go. And so you develop this anxiety of just constantly being watched and monitored and looking for the devil in you, and take those kids and just let them be here where their freak flag doesn't even register. You know what I mean? No one's paying attention to the kid with purple hair. Everybody's got something going on,
And that's totally transformative for people. I mean, one of the things that I found just from being on tour with Jake Flores, both of us fucking, straight bros. But playing these smaller markets, playing these little towns, the kid in the 9 Inch Nails shirt would show up. Because that kid goes to every fucking hardcore show, every gutter punk show, anything that has any kind of subculture whatsoever. They go to that in hopes that they'll meet people like them because they're such outcasts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it is so the idea. I mean, it's so not just sexuality, right? It's any sort of presentation that's outside, that's other, the way the outlier is demonized at this point in our society is mind-blowing to me. It's really reaching a point where I'm like, holy shit. And to the point where I'm going to Memphis at the end of the month, and to the point where the Southerner in me is you got to go just check in with the South and see how much of this is I mean, obviously it's bad, but how much is it, because I'm getting a little afraid. And I've always been I'm not really afraid of the South or my friends, and it's, I don't know. It's just really interesting where we're at right now. It's fucking wild. Anyway, sorry, off topic.
No, we have plenty of time for off topic
okay,
shit.
Cool.
But I mean, Memphis is a great place to go and check in with the South because it's got all the good and all the bad right there.
It does, and this place that I'm playing, Drew's Bar, has always been for me. I mean, since I started Dykes of Hazzard, my entire stand-up career, I've stopped at what I consider a quintessential Southern queer bar, right? You smoke inside, there's whiskey in the back, and they don't have their license. You know what I mean? Just a community space. The bartender's birthday is going to be a party. Happy birthday, Jenna. It's just the place where it's construction workers and drag queens and everybody, because that's your neighborhood bar. And so, I talked to the owner and she's like, we might have to be an adult club, And so what I'm really interested in is the definition of drag, because I've been wearing boxer briefs since I was 18, bro. Like, I wear man pants every day. Like,
Yeah.
I'm technically illegal everywhere I go in the state of Tennessee because I am head to toe dressed in men's clothes.
Yeah.
And if you follow the letter of the law, that's terrifying, right? Like, because I have a mouth and I am used to mouthing off to people in authority when they're being dicks because I'm a white lady, right? And that's what we do. But now I'm like, oh shit, when I'm there, make sure to mind my P's and Q's because I am now a walking reason to arrest me. So I think that people don't give enough credit to how oppressive that is. Just saying, hey, who you are is enough for me to arrest you. I think white people don't realize that enough. People of color absolutely realize that enough. But that who you are walking around in your skin is enough. You don't have to do fucking anything else. I have the power here. I'm the authority. It's on the books now. So act accordingly, right?
I think most people too, when they conceptualize drag, they think about, 3-inch heels and a feather boa and whatnot. But the point is that drag is not a costume. It's who people are at their core. And that's what they're after. It's really I wondered, it's like, and for a while, Antifa was the boogeyman, was the fall guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like in the last 6-8 months, there's been this really malign shift that it's just queer and trans kids. And that's the boogeyman. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with straight white bros about women swimming. And I'm like, bro, you do not care about women swimming.
Right.
What is this about? What is this really about? What's at the core here? You don't care about gymnastics. What is it?
Yeah.
And you have to sort of burrow down into it. And it's male fear. It's homophobia. It's transphobia,
It's male fear, it's homophobia, it's transphobia. It's also this thing that is removing very important conversations from the table that need to be had, right? Like why is swimming gendered anyway? Like when we look at how our society was established in these gendered ways, it was established that way because women didn't get rights to do any of these things until well after they were already established and running, right? And so they're like, well, let's make a women. So if we have a chance to redo it, I'm kind of like, why are we putting gender in anything, in any of the sports? Weight, height, age are perfectly acceptable reasons to categorize young kids playing sports, and their locker rooms have been separate anyway. And this, we can get into the transits of the locker room and all of that. But I don't know. I just feel like this idea, there is, a friend of mine who's a trans woman who plays in a football league was like, maybe I'm just better at football because I was allowed to play football my whole life because I grew up living as a boy, right? And I think there was a lot to be said for that. It's like there are women who were there, cis-born women who were just as strong as she was, but she may have had an edge, and she admitted it, but it was because she was allowed to play football since she was 6, and not a lot of times do girls get the opportunity to do that, right? So
yeah. She had the
I don't understand why the concept of spectrum is just so hard for people to get. That's the part I don't understand. That I always think about Rogan and Stanhope, right? And I'm like, look, how can you tell me that this is the same gender? How can you tell me? When you just, it's not, you know what I mean? It's so clear. There's going to be men who are on the far masculine end of the spectrum, and that's okay. It's not like but this idea that all of them should be in that corner, I am a spectrumist. I believe that if we stopped everything and really looked at where everyone could fall on a real spectrum and not try to stick us into corners, we'd be a lot happier. And I think people would be less inclined to surgically change their bodies too. Truthfully, I think if someone was allowed to exist safely, not having to fit into one man, one woman, which was the thing they created for queer people, become one of these, and then as soon as we start becoming one of those, they get pissed off too. Like, no, we tried to have a beard and tits and a dick, and you got mad, so you told us to be one or the other. So now we're doing that, and you're still fucking mad. Like my people are surgically cutting parts off of them to fit into your idea of what it means to be how they feel inside, and you're pissed. It's crazy.
They're pissed because pissed is what they want to be. They want to be angry about something, and that's why I think that's why it's convenient to demonize queer folks, to demonize trans folks, is because then they can direct. It's sort of the pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. It's a misdirect. But yeah, they're angry because angry is what they want to be. The
amount of boob jobs in Dallas alone, like the amount of perfectly socially acceptable straight gender affirming care, the amount of people who bitch and moan about autonomy and like their own rights and their freedoms and their inability to let another human do something to their body. What the fuck do you care?
Yeah.
Why do you care what someone does to their body?
Yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's that people really don't care about what other people do to their bodies. It's a projection of themselves. So that's what I'm always sort of like trying to scrape the layers away of, like, why does that? What is the threat to you? What is so threatening about a trans kid?
But it's the same mentality of like, this is going to sound fucked, but maybe like, I was just thinking about how when I was in high school, it was always like, save the babies, right? It's because they do believe that they're saving children from the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are definitely I have a kid going to join the program that parents are literally like, you're from the devil. Because religion does that to people, right? And so it becomes this thing where people believe when you get children involved, good people believe it's their duty to protect those children, right? And that is what the right extreme figured out, is like, they did it with abortion and they got everybody on board and you saved the babies. Got it. Okay. Now the children are being sexualized. Stop it. While churches are literally fucking children. Like, it's like mind-blowing to me. And not even paying taxes. Fucking children tax-free.
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with just, sort of what we were talking about initially, is the comfortable or uncomfortable, that one of the reasons why the human brain, or why we're encouraged to default to binary thinking, to think about, black and white, man or woman, is because that's really simple for a primitive mind to say, they're the bad guys, we're the good guys. We got to protect the good guys from the bad guys. And then we feel more than just comfortable. We feel like we belong and like we have a purpose, and I mean, I was talking to my editor yesterday about how to tell a story, how to create a narrative. And the first thing you do in order to create a narrative is have there be a good guy and a bad guy. That's what drives it forward. That's where that energy comes from. And it's too convenient. But I think that there's an evolutionary argument for why the human brain loves binaries, is because if we say friend or foe, food or poison, that's a real simple conversation. It's immediate and it's simple. It's, are you a 0 or are you a 1? There's this clip. Go ahead.
No, it just seems like yes. And isn't this like the result of human isn't have you met a baby lately?
Yeah.
They're fucking geniuses. Have you met like a new, fresh smell, new baby smell? Like, they get to be about 1 or 2 right now. They know shit they should not know until they're like 4. Like, humans are evolving before our eyes. When you look at like how quickly our brains, technology advances happen just from, say, the moon.
At that age, they're just sucking up all the information,
I just think we are evolving as humans, and I feel like we're like, I think being a bisexual is probably the most evolved state, right? Like I'm kind of pissed I can't suck a dick, to be honest. It seems like
I feel the same way.
It seems like that's the state, right? Where you're like you've evolved as a human. I don't know. I just feel like yes to the binary, and yes, that's what we've existed in, but like aren't we due to like level up a little bit in the way we treat each other? It just seems like we've leveled up in every other way.
Yeah.
We can fly planes. I can listen to you from Phoenix on this fucking thing in my ear. And like, we can't figure out how to be nice to somebody who looks different than us. Get the fuck out of here. Like,
there's this clip of Jordan Peterson going around where he's, saying saying like, oh, if you're a man, I know how to treat you. I know how to talk to you. If you're a woman, I know how to treat you, or I know how to talk to you. But like, what is this gender non-binary? Like those are just made up words. When somebody says they're non-binary, I have no idea how to treat them. And I'm like, bro, this is the most compelling argument for non-binary ever. Number one, man and woman, those are fucking made up words. All words are made up. All right. That we assign the meaning has changed or not changed, that we decide. Language serves us, and then to identify as non-binary, what you're demanding is I require you to meet me on my terms and to experience me as an individual. And isn't that fucking what we all want?
It's so simple. It blows my mind, the idea. And listen, it took me a while to be clear. I have friends who, in the early 2000s were identifying as trans, and I was like, I don't know, bro. You sure you want to? You know what I mean? Like, I was definitely that dyke, right? Like, but then when you get to a place of like, oh wait, like all you're asking me is to not make assumptions about you. That's all you're asking me to do, is to not make assumptions about you, which is against our hardwiring, right? Like that is our survival, right? That's what our brain is wired to do, but it just feels like we should be reaching a point where we can kind of see people just as humans, just you're human, and accept that through generations we've surgically cut off parts and like erased any of the middle of the spectrum, right? Like hermaphrodites, there are variations to the human body that just naturally occur. And that is because your God is an artist. Let him fucking create. Like, I'm always like, if I was God, I'd be so pissed at my followers. Like every day, like he's at a Build-A-Bear and just making the same fucking bear every day. And then one day he's like, let's put a little glitter on it. And here's my bear. And everybody's like, boo, God. Make me a cop bear. Boo.
I love your point though, that like getting a Harley Davidson tattoo is gender reaffirming surgery.
I just don't know why we care so much what other people do with their bodies, and I don't know why anyone doesn't realize that drag is theater and art and expression, and it's simple. It's not a purple dinosaur, but not a dress and good makeup. Like, I don't know. Fuck 'em, man. It's really hard right now. It's hard to like not hate everybody. And I have a great life and everything's going wonderfully for me. And I'm just like so frustrated when I talk to these kids who are like just trying their best to make it out alive. And everywhere, when I was growing up, I knew that I was different. I knew that I didn't quite fit in. And people in my high school knew that. And they said some shit for sure. But when I went home, with the exception of like David Duke, most politicians and leaders were decent human beings who weren't creating sound bites for clicks. So all of this vitriol didn't exist. And now when a kid comes home, somebody in their neighborhood has a yard sign for a politician who just publicly said they should all be eradicated. Right. Like, and that is a level of mental oppression on this generation that I didn't experience. And I don't think anyone before, I don't want to say Cheney, but there was one guy who really started this bullshittery. I can't think of that old white guy's name, but where they just kind of made politics vitriol, and they just really cranked up the way it was acceptable to talk shit towards other citizens. We've lost the civil discourse.
Yeah. I do think that we are evolving, and also as sort of the evolution gets louder, the primitive aspects of humanity that's getting louder too,
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like both things happening at the same time, and it makes it real scary when they clash. Let's get back to the kids and Summer of Sass.
Oh yeah. So was on tour, 20 year high school reunion. Kids still here, and I know we needed workers here, so I said I'll just bring some kids up. I started a GoFundMe. I raised around $2,500. I talked to people in town who maybe would rent a room out in their house to we get a lot of workers. J1 visa workers come from overseas, just summer staff. We go from like a 3,000 person town to any given Saturday, we get 50,000 people that show up, and a new 50,000 people every week, right? Like it's a tourist economy. And so the first year, was a GoFundMe. The second year, I got a grant for $25,000, rented a couple seasonal apartments, summer apartments, brought in a few kids. And then, the pandemic started and the housing market went crazy. And it seemed like no matter how much money I raised, there was never enough, because anyone who could work remotely could now come live in P-Town for the summer and work from their laptop. And so the housing market just got absorbed. Like all the worker housing and affordable housing, if you want to call it, servants' quarters, as we've been jokingly calling it, got all absorbed. And so it became pretty clear that Summer of Sass, as someone who was trying to secure summer housing, was becoming unsustainable. And so for the 5-year anniversary party, I brought, or fundraiser, I brought like 6 kids from the past 5 years, and they told their stories. And I said, listen, this is the kids we've saved, and if I'm done saving kids, that's great. We did a great job. If you have the money and you want to give us money, I need to buy a house. And then about 3 days later, I got an email from somebody who was like, we'd like to sit down and talk to you. We'd like to buy you a house. And the original offer was $2.5 million. And it was wild. And then the house we wanted to get, we couldn't get. And this one was 3.7. They said, we think you should have that one. And now, so then I made them wire the money before they went on a vacation, because if they crashed in the Alps, no one would believe me. True story. True fucking story. No, I was like, listen, because that's, it's big money. And so it takes a minute for it to transfer or whatever. And I was like, listen, it's not that I don't trust you, but I need to fundraise before the end of the year, because that's when the giving season happens. And I need to know that money's in my account, even if the sale doesn't go through until after you come back. Because if you die,
I trust you.
Believe me.
I trust you. I just don't trust God.
Precisely. Exactly. Yes. And so we are now the Summer of Sass Inc. is the proud owner of a 8-room Victorian mansion from the 1800s. And we will service 8 kids this summer and then up to 12 next year. So like a scaled growth. And we're in the process of building out the programming. And now it can obviously be a year-round thing. So, the idea is that we create, and I will tell you, Mishka, I tell people this all the time. And you trust me, no one wants to credit a straight white dude with a good idea any less than I do. But I remember us talking and you saying that, when queers and minorities and people of color and start taking care of themselves, that's how you really smash the patriarchy. And that has been a thread that has run through the work that I've done here. And I tell them this story, that it was probably the best thing I've ever heard for young queers. And that's why, our tagline is happy, healthy humans. And that's what we do. Like, my job is to help these young adults figure out how to live their best lives, to be happy, healthy humans, and to be independent, because a lot of them don't have family support. So we've got about 2 years to take them in at between 18 and 20 and teach them life skills, teach them how to take care of their mental health, teach them how to take care of their physical health, and how to do a budget, and how to cook some food, and just how to exist as a person. That's it. We're just trying to give them a little help in existing like a person and becoming a happy, healthy human. And it is very much, I credit you. I tell every new kid that comes in here, hears that at some point.
Man, I was just about to ask you, if you cried when you got the money and now you're making me well up. Because I remember that conversation. I remember talking, and listening to you talk about this and thinking about you sort of going back to help kids who are going through shit that you went through without anybody helping you, without a program like this to help you. I feel, I know you to be a pretty tough person, that you can take a lot of shit and that you have taken a lot of shit, but also some of this has to be tremendously emotionally taxing for you to reconnect with kids who are at that sort of most vulnerable age that still resonates inside you,
I think there's definitely that. I mean, I got it wasn't easy for sure. Like I definitely had a couple years where it was dicey, honestly, in my own brain as a teenager, and being a cool kid on the sports team, and then they find out you're gay and no one talks to you your senior year. Like I was that kid, right? Like my sorority, I thought I was only gay for my girlfriend in high school, and so I pledged a sorority, and they thought I was really cool for the first semester, and then they heard I might have been gay in high school, and then I wasn't cool in my sorority anymore, right? So like I've kind of always been the person who has been accepted, and then someone heard I might be gay, and then I wasn't cool, right? And then I moved to college and kind of came into my own in a way where, I don't know, it's interesting. I have very sarcastic parents. I had a probably not very emotionally balanced upbringing. And thank God for that, because it creates a level of trauma resistance that like, I mean, it just really does. Like my girlfriend right now had really great, loving parents. And like, sometimes she's like, damn, I'm not prepared for any trauma because I was treated so kindly and so lovingly. And then now both of her parents passed away. And like, she's like, holy fuck, I wasn't ready for this. And then I look on the flip side and I'm like, oh, like maybe there's some truth to that emotional abuse from childhood that I've turned into some good, I mean, it definitely, there are times where right now specifically where what some of the kids are going through is harder than I ever experienced, and I'm having a really hard time with it. I also have a level of detachment because I think it's important when you're supporting another person that your needs don't get in the way. Right. And so like I don't do this to fill a hole in my heart because I want kids. Right. Like when my kids, like I don't, like when my kids come here, I say to them, you have a family. And if you don't, like, obviously we are that, but like most of these kids have parents somewhere, and our job is to support them as they navigate how they're going to navigate that relationship. We just make it so the only option isn't their abusive home. Right. Like I work with kids who, are in therapy, and after a year and a half, they're like, I want to try to talk to my parents about this, or I want to, and we're like, yeah, you should. Like we want you to do, I keep a level of detachment so I can support them as fully as they need to be supported. Right. Like we meet them where they are. We help them get where they're going. That means I don't judge where they're coming from, and I have no business telling them where they're going. Right. Mm-hmm. All I can do is say, what are your goals? All right, I'm going to try to help you meet them as best I can. And for them to participate in the program, they also have to show up for themselves. So there's accountability, right? Like I'm going to show up for you as much as you show up for yourself. And that's what we do. And it's been working. It's been, this age group specifically really likes it if you don't bullshit them. Mm-hmm. And if you let them feel like they're in charge of their own destiny, really. Right? Like, and tell them they're worth something. That's really when you come from a place where the only people who look like you are unemployed, or, can't get a job because no one will hire them because of how they look or how they talk or how limp their wrist is or any of those things. And then you bring them somewhere and people who look just like them have $1 million houses. It does wonders for your self-esteem. Like it really, that visibility matters thing. People are always like, visibility matters when you see successful queers and successful trans people and people of color. But it also matters when all you see are people who have been shit on their whole lives, right? If you're in a small town somewhere and there's like, hey, there's gay Larry. Oh, he's a fucking drunk. Watch out. you know, and like, you're like, I'm gay. I'm going to be gay Larry, you know, you're like, I don't feel like gay Larry. I remember I was convinced that I was not a lesbian. I was convinced that I just had a crush on my best friend in high school because lesbians were weird. Like that's what you do. You create your own reality because what you've been told about being a queer person is so not what you feel or identify like that you're like, wait, I don't feel at all like a pedophile. Weird. Like, you know,
I still, it's like just a moment in, that's sort of like frozen in my head, or a moment that's still happening, is the Obama bending down so like a little black boy could touch his hair to see that his hair felt like Obama's hair. And it's like, man, in that moment with that gesture, you changed that kid's life forever. And every black American to see that, oh, he's one of us. I don't have to be the garbage man, or I don't have to be the homeless guy. I don't have to be a wino. I can be this too. And now we have proof, right? There is a guy doing that job right now with hair like mine, it's the kind of thing that we can sort of like talk about, and but there's no substitute for the fucking real thing of just seeing successful gay people in positions of power, successful women in positions of power, successful black people in positions of power, the people who have historically been stepped on because of who they are, because of how they were born. To see them succeeding, it changes something in people.
That point to seeing them in power is a very key component, because it's not just, I have friends who produce stuff and they're like, oh, we booked all these, we booked people of color and we booked lesbians, and where are they? They didn't show up to the show. And it's like, well, who was at the table when your marketing budget was decided? Were there any people of color or any lesbians, or was it just, white gay guys or white straight guys? Or because those are the two circuits I hang out in, is either white straight dudes or white gay dudes. You're all very similar, by the way, just so you know. Like, there's really not that much difference at all, except one of them's getting way more blowjobs, and it's not the straight guys. Okay, so, but
that's funny, because I always like fucking bonded with lesbians, because it's like because it's like we're tight, we're fucking cheap, and we like fixing shit ourselves, so I always get along real good with lesbians.
There's a level of independence that lesbians are into. It's our vibe.
Yeah. One of the things I want to talk, like, I want to sort of really push down into this is it's best to frame it in just the most problematic language, whatsoever. What gave you the balls to ask for fucking $2.5 million? That's fucking insane. Where did you find the courage?
Well, I never had
confidence
to. I never had to. I got to tell you, I don't know. You know what it was? It wasn't confidence as much as I knew it was the only answer. And I knew that I was done doing this on a shoestring while being surrounded by a lot of wealth. Like, David Geffen's yacht hangs out in a harbor for 2 weeks every year. Like, there is money here, right? Not everybody, but it is here. And so there was this moment where I just knew, I talked to my partner, and like, we had really realized that I was essentially running an entire business on a $4,000 stipend every year that I paid myself. And it was taking a lot of my time and energy, and it kind of similar to how Helium and Buffalo happened, where like I had spent 5-6 years on a project, and it's either you get it to the next level, or, you've got to kind of put it down. And so you do this last push. And this was my last push of like, I didn't ask for an amount. I just knew what it would cost. I thought I was going to get $1 million. I was going to buy a 2-bedroom cottage. I was going to help 4 kids a year. Boom, boom, boom. Did it. I'm a lifesaver. Incredible. Right. And instead it was $3.7 million and a house and a commitment to cover 25% of my operating budget for a few years while we get going up to like, $50K. And, just like this large commitment. And then what happened? That's when I got balls. Like once this house came in, then what happens is everyone else goes, oh, someone give you that much money. You must know what you're doing. Here you go. Like money begets money, right? Not that obviously we're still fundraising and still need money because we have now an 8-room mansion that has $1,000, heating bill, but we don't have a mortgage.
I remember, maybe it was the first year that you did it, and to go from $1,500, I kicked in $100 one of those years, and I've been patting myself on the fucking back for that ever since. And then you got a nearly $4 million house to parlay that initial $1,500 GoFundMe to nearly $4 million house. What that proves is you had a fucking brilliant idea. You recognized the need in a moment of shepherding these kids through one of the most difficult parts of their lives. I really think that, what is it, 12 to 18 that you're taking?
No, 18 to 20. So they've got to be old enough that a lot of kids get kicked out, right? So as soon as they get 18, if their parents don't want anything to do with them. And then I learned the first year I did 18 to 24. No, that's not for me.
There's a limit to human caring, and it cuts off at 20.
Yeah, no. I still need you to think that I'm a parent adjacent person, to listen to me, but also because I recognize. All right, so you're queer in the South. You get to be gay at the bar, right? That's where I got to be gay. I got to go to Central Station in Shreveport. I got snuck in by well-intended older homosexuals who knew it was safe for me to be there. And no one got creepy with me. No one got weird, but they just let me in because that's where people like me went, right? Mm-hmm. But when we look at the queer community and we look at our connection to intimacy and sexuality, it is directly connected to a drink in our hands, because most of Southern rural U.S., you can only show that affection in a bar. So your entire emotional makeup and your sense of self and intimacy and being yourself is connected to alcohol. And this is what I challenged my community here with, was why did we build this beautiful place where you can be gay and walk down the street and hold hands, and you can do it at the library, and you can do it at the grocery store, and not in one neighborhood, in anywhere in the town. You can be yourself, and you can learn how to express intimacy, and you can learn how to be emotionally vulnerable, and you can do it all without having a drink in your hand. And what a wonderful opportunity in these 2 years to try to heal the queer community in a way for the next generation, so we're not all just shit hammered all the time.
Yeah. From my experience working in clubs in New York, Friday, Saturday, we had the big, sort of gay disco dance parties, and that's where everybody made the bulk of their money, because because all the gays came out and drank and partied and were incredibly well behaved, and threw around tons of money because they were smart and they were driven and they worked hard, and they got fucking shit faced because you had to. And that's one of the things that, this is my soapbox, is how alcohol has become an integral part of American seduction, right? Any courtship ritual, regardless of, where you fall on the spectrum, the alcohol plays a role in the meeting, falling in love, having sex for the first time, all that stuff. It's all alcohol is the lubricant, and that's one of the things that I found too with, early on, being a drunk and being a druggie, I partied with a lot of queers because they knew how to fucking throw down like straight white boys didn't, and it's because they just gravitated to it immediately, and it became it was stitched into their identity. It's who they were, and it's because they had to have it. It literally a crutch,
people, people been talking about George Santos, and they're like, "How could he?" I was like, "Oh no, you don't understand. If there's one thing queer people know how to do, it's to pretend to be somebody else.
Yeah.
Like that is the one thing you have begged us to do. Like I think he's an asshole, and like I know that gay guy, and I don't like him, but like it's definitely like what we know how to do is to pretend to be somebody else because you require it of us to remain alive in some cases, right? Or to remain at least physically safe or emotionally safe or for safety's sake. There is something that I think I've been trying to really drive home about Summer of Sass specifically, and that is how wildly unqualified I am for this. And I think that like that is the part where if you see good you can do, just do it and see what happens. Right? Because I did never in a million years thought this is where I was going to end up when I started a GoFundMe 6 years ago. Right? And so it's really been something where I feel like people aren't good, and we live in whether it's, there's too many lawyers or everyone's kind of afraid to get involved, but we are now, it's too late for that tough shit. You got to get involved now, right? Like that's just kind of where we're at. And so figure out the way that works for you. It used to be, I like to go tell racists and rednecks to go fuck themselves. And now I'm kind of aging into, what if I just focus on making some people's lives better and, try to create as many examples of queers winning and queer joy. And, we got this $3.7 million donation, and there's probably going to be a documentary made, and, there's all sorts of fun stuff happening, but not a lot of queer press. No one's really covering it. I sent out press releases. You would think it would be a big story, right? But if one of my kids got killed, it would be all over the papers, right? Because the media is involved in making sure we don't see too many queer success stories right now because trauma gets clicks, right? Mm-hmm. So on top of it just being generally bad, that generally bad is amplified in a way that it just never has been before. And it just keeps getting, everybody wants to regurgitate the shitty news. And I honestly thought post-pandemic we were going to be in a little bit of a utopia. Everybody wants some fuzzy stuff, but it just got fucking worse.
I would argue that the opposite is true, that you're actually wildly qualified to be doing exactly what you're doing. And I think that all of the people in our friend group, that's one of the things that we know about you, is that if you're going up on stage last minute, if you're going up in front of 6 people, if you're going up in front of 600, if you're going up in front of a hostile crowd, if you're going up in front of the hometown crowd, Becker can do it. Becker can handle it. Becker's got this.
Now I'm gonna cry.
You are like the comedy shortstop that you can play every position. You can play every role. And so I think the takeaway for this is not that you're wildly unqualified, but that if you have a dream, and if you have heart, and if you have determination, you can fucking do it. And you did it.
It is crazy. It is definitely something that, and thank you for that, because there are times where I go, when this money came in, it was like, oh, well, I just went 4 more years of your career, right? Like, cause it's a real thing, right? Like you do this thing where that like, had I been able to wrap it up and move on, it would have been, my comedy suffers. There's a lot of limited energy, right? And so I'm fortunate that I live in a place that lets me have a weekly show that I can kind of mic and like, I'm so fucking privileged, man. I'm so fucking blessed to like live where I live, get to perform, have a board of directors who, I will say this, if you ever find yourself starting a not-for-profit and you get a $3.7 million donation when no one ever thought in a million years that would ever happen, they all thought it was this cute little thing. And I kept saying, no, we're going to get money, guys. Like there's too much money here to not get it, right? They will let you do kind of whatever the fuck you want after that.
That's awesome.
I told my board, I was like, listen, I didn't anticipate this. I'm happy to run it. I'm happy to scale it. I'll build the programming. I'll do all this stuff, but I'm still going to go on the road and do shows, because if I don't, this will fall apart. Like one thing I learned with the Helium Project is I got the investment, whatever, but as soon as I stopped being able to be me fully. I hated it, and I hated every second of it. And fortunately, what we're teaching at Summer of Sass is authenticity. So, teaching kids to live their fullest, most authentic self with confidence. So it kind of works into me being able to be like, I got to go to altercation this year,
This is one of the things that I struggle with, because I'm teaching and I love teaching, and people have suggested that I should. Yeah, okay. I know. People have suggested that I should teach more, but if I were to stop doing, all the other shit that I do, I couldn't do it, man. I have to do all those different things. But let me burden you with a question that I often get, which is, how does one feather together, being this sort of groundbreaking queer advocate who has, really shown that she's a heavyweight as far as raising funds, getting things rolling. How do you feather that together with the fucking fisting jokes, with the boob and the butt and the dick jokes? And I remember I had another sewage leak here just yesterday, and I was out in my yard with a huge puddle of liquid feces, and I was in that made me think of you, because it made me think of the first show that we did here with you and Megan DePonso and my mom hanging out in the front yard, and you were telling a fisting joke about like taking a winter boot off, someone prolapsing, like taking a winter boot off and like the lining. And I looked over at my mom, and she was slapping her leg and cackling. But there's this huge division in American culture between lowbrow and highbrow, and it's like you're moving into the NPR phase of your career, but you're not yet done with the dive bar phase of your career. How do you keep that all together?
I find that the best thing when I do Sandy Claus, I say she's the clause with flaws, right? That like it's there's something in humanity that is broken, and I am a broken person from a fucking weird society, and I don't know. I think it's just that this is what it is. One can do both of those things, and the minute we figure that out about humans, that like their one bad deed or their one dirty joke doesn't remove all the other good stuff. Like a human is both of those things. Like I've been really leaning into good deeds and dirty jokes lately, because that's the core of what I am. And dirty jokes don't negate my good deeds in any way, shape, or form. And I think the better we get at remembering that humans are fucking complex, and that like you cannot cherry pick. Like, listen, I was a pretty solid feminazi for a hot minute. Am I allowed to say that still? Like, one of those I don't want to say cancel culture-y, but obviously, like I have friends with all straight white dudes who push envelopes, and I find them to be some of the best men I know. But like, I definitely like for a little while had gotten into a little bit of like, purity checking everybody. And then I was like, wait, we're not. We're just purity checking moments, like pulling a shitty moment from somebody. And like, obviously when you have an elongated history of being abused or whatever, but like, people who say the wrong things, or like people, I don't know, man, I just really, I do the best I can to be who I am, and who I am is both of those things. And that's just what it is. And so far, so good.
Yeah.
And I think I learned that the best thing I can do is to be unapologetically myself. And it took a while to get that confidence, and the money didn't hurt. This helped a lot when you Helium was good when I was like, I'm gonna build a comedy scene and we're gonna have a club and blah blah. And everyone's like, you're crazy, no one's gonna invest in Buffalo, blah blah. I was like, no, you'll see. And then they did, and then I hated it, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do that again. That was like 8 years of work that ended up with like me just fucking crying and leaving, right? Like, so when this came and happened, it was like, all right, you've done this before, now do it better. Make sure, and it empowered me to make decisions on my own behalf that I might not have made in the past. And I don't know, man, being you works. It really, if you can, being authentic is kryptonite for some people, man. They just don't know how to process it because they're so conditioned to absorb what I should be doing to please them, right? I don't know. I don't know.
Being authentic is being out. And that's one of the things that, when I stopped drinking, and then when I came out to my friends and was like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic, that this is who I am, and then publishing The Long Run and then sort of sharing that story with everybody. When I did that, I was like, holy fuck, is this what it feels like to be gay and to have a whole secret life that, addicts and queers, we're good at fooling people because that's what we have to do to survive, is to conceal that secret life, and then when I finally sort of was like, yeah, no, I'm a fucking alcoholic. This is the shit that I did. This is what I was like trying to hide. And if you didn't know about it, it's because I'm good at it. It's a survival mechanism. That I think is one of the things that's so noxious about this fucking stupid drag law, is that it's anti-authenticity. It's in favor of secrecy and cloistering people. And when has it worked to drive human beings underground?
I mean, it works for the rich people, right? Like, if it's that basic, like, hey, you guys fight each other because we're gonna run away with the fucking money.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. And they'll find a new, just like you said, like it was Antifa, and now it's drag queens. And election time, there'll be a little bit more abortion, even though they just had a big win. Women are shit, so we can shit on them a little bit. Like, I don't know. It does feel like the last gasp of the patriarchy in a way, where it's like, oh, you guys are really hanging on, huh? Okay.
But also, dude, we said that exact same line in like 2015. Like, this last gasp has been gasping for a while, Well,
I mean, in the grand scheme of world history, right? I mean, it's probably going to take 70 years or so, 80 years. I don't know.
That is a blink of the eye. And one of the things I say about racism is that, like, the humans be fucking. People are fucking each other and procreating. It is brown to the future. You can be as fucking racist as you want to be, and time will win.
Yeah. Yeah. No. The other thing I think that, I believe it takes all attacks on all fronts to win any sort of battle, and so, like, you're going to need the people who are out there setting things on fire, and you're going to need the people who are writing legislation. You're going to need all of that. But I believe that where, as a country, we fucked up when we were dealing with civil rights is, we legislated things that we didn't do the hard work of changing hearts and minds about. And that's, great. You signed the Civil Rights Act, but you didn't actually do any work to heal the communities that had these racist ideas and fix them. And so I'm hoping that at least the queer movement, is embracing intersectionality and is recognizing that, like, we're all stronger together, we can all work together, and just legislation doesn't change hearts and minds, right? And that gay marriage, okay, great, except what happened? No one went and did a ton of work in changing hearts and minds, and now this is the backlash, right? When you force behavior onto people and then you don't do any of the hard emotional work of communicating vulnerably and, like, figuring out, the things that are making someone afraid, as you mentioned earlier, and, like, doing that work, then the kickback is this, and turns out they're still in power. So this is going to suck for a lot of young people. And old people. Apparently it's old people too. Apparently some of the states are like, no, you don't get to be trans no matter how old you are, which is absurd.
That's one of the reasons why I try to talk to the end of every one of those fucking conversations about women swimming, is because I do think that each of us, that we do have a responsibility, and particularly me, because I'm in a position of privilege and power to have straight white bros come to me and be like, "Oh, you don't really believe that, do you?" And be like, "All right, well, let's take a drive, or let's talk this through. Let's go on a walk." I think I'm, obviously if they're turning to their straight white bro for an explanation of what trans is or why it is or isn't valid, that's a problem right there. But what I've tried to do is just to plant a tiny little seed. I was talking to a friend who's a musician, and he's a big fan of, like, 1940s country and western, and I was like, when you listen to Patsy Cline, like, do you identify with her? the Walking After Midnight? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, so that's non-binary, right? You're the woman in that song. For the 2 minutes and 35 seconds, you're a woman pining after her man. So that's all it takes. Just that little pinprick of you're that woman in that moment for those seconds. That's it. You're non-binary too, and he looked crestfallen. But hopefully that's a little like grain of sand for him to sort of mull over, and I think that's all it takes is just to throw a little bit of doubt in there.
No, it does. And it takes it coming from someone who they are comfortable with and who they relate to, someone who looks or sounds like them, right? Like there is so much work to be done in allyship. And I think it definitely, creates waves and you will be in conversations I will never be in. And it doesn't even matter if we're in the same circles and if we're, if we know the same people. You're going to be in conversations that I will never be in. I'm going to be in conversations that you will never be in. There's definitely, I do think that there's not enough. Well, I'm not going to say I don't think there's enough credit for white guys. That's definitely not what I'm going to say. That is not a clip I will ever give you, Mishka. But there is a lot to be said for speaking up and just being able to poke someone's brain a little bit and being able to say, well, what about this, I'm trying real hard to just assume everyone's doing the best they can with what they got. That's what I'm trying to go in through life with right now. Because I think I remember going to Louisiana and staying at a friend of mine's house who is a liberal by all senses of the word, particularly in Louisiana, and they had a gun in their nightstand. And I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, right, we are literally living in two different cultures of like, you're living in a culture of fear. And like, I think that's the thing that northern city liberals don't realize is how much when you go into places in the South and into smaller markets where a lot of this legislation is happening, how much every hotel, every gym has Fox News on, how much the culture is conservative. Like I had queers in Shreveport tell me it way better to be a fag than a liberal. Like they were dead set. Like there was nothing wrong with their sexuality as long as they were a Republican. Right. And so I'm that's the part that I still like am trying to get people to understand is that like we are talking about two very different cultures. And there are most certainly elitists in the big cities that don't understand what it's like to grow up in the South at all to this day, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's, I don't know, man, we real disconnected. I think we're just going to break up, right? Like the country's just going to break up.
It's too big. That's absolutely true.
But isn't that how the EU? Yeah, it's too big, right? Like that's how if you study world history, you either go dictatorship or you break up into smaller, more manageable governments, right?
Yeah. Before this slips away, I'm always curious about sort of different models about the systems that we see sort of like occurring again and again throughout the world of like, and one is the drop of water in the pool, and then there's the concentric circles that move out. Another one is the tree root structure, the way that happens. And then one of the things I've been thinking about lately is the guns and fear, right? The people want a gun to defend their home, to keep themselves safer. Does it keep them safer? I would say no. They would say yes. But even if it does keep them safer, in that instance, an individual makes their home safer and everyone else's homes less safe, right? So it's this thing that happens where the individual prioritizes themselves and then damages the group, right? And then my grandmother had 17 children. That was not uncommon at the time, and biologically women can conceive children as young as 11, 12, and be bearing children up to mid 40s, 50. A woman could be having children that entire time, which would be great for propagation of the species and terrible for her. Right.
Right.
So that's an instance where, something is good for just, society writ large. I'm doing scare quotes because it's looking at it as a purely biological thing of propagation of species. But the individual suffers. And one of the things that, so I've been trying to think of things that benefit both the individual and the species. And one of those things is self-care, which is like what we were talking about, like the revolutionary power of self-care, wearing masks, right? Wearing masks is a good way to protect you and to protect me. And also by protecting ourselves, we're preventing the spread of COVID and all kinds of other airborne illnesses, if we're honest, and that's like good for everybody.
But capitalism doesn't elevate selflessness.
It doesn't.
Right?
It punishes it, if anything.
Yeah. And we live in capitalism, so
and that is the pressure that bears down on everything.
I'm also low key pissed that we can't in the same way that we're like binary, like you can't just figure out how to take the best parts of all the economic systems we've had over the years, put them together and make a fucking utopia. Like, I just can't. Could you imagine if somebody was just like, no, let's just keep driving the old Model T. Let's start there. Now I know we have Teslas, but we got a Model T. Let's just pull that one out. It's gonna, it's just the way we're able to evolve in so many ways until it becomes really important for ourselves.
Is this your way of announcing your run for presidency in 2024?
I think that I want to see like a Kardashian run, or like I would vote for Jon Stewart and Kim Kardashian. I just feel like if the game of politics is what it is and Trump made it what it is, then the left would kill if we would just stop pretending like we're going to put real politicians in there and get some figureheads, because now we're just trying to win some control. Like, let's just pack Congress with TikTokers. Fuck it. Like, let's just
I saw an article today about how Pauly Shore feels about like his fellow co-stars in Encino Man, winning, huge awards, that maybe Pauly Shore for president, I mean, that's a job he could do.
That's crazy.
All right. The two questions I want to pin you down on before we wrap. The first one is, how can people support Summer of Sass? What do you need, and how do we get it to you?
So this is still, believe it or not, this was the craziest thing I ever learned. If you get $3.7 million, all it means is that you have to raise a lot more money, because now we went from like a $40,000 operating budget to like a $240,000 operating budget, right? So like my dream would be for every person who might have an extra $5 a month to pitch it into this program. Like that, to me, like big money is great, but this is a community built thing. Like in our town, it's just something where like, it's an easy way to help young adults. I mean, we radically transform their lives. So most of it's money. And when you don't have money, it's tell somebody our story. That's what I tell everybody. I was like, if you can do anything, it's tell someone about us. You can send them to the Welcome to Provincetown podcast. That really like gave a great in-depth look at how the program runs, what we do. You can go to the website at summerofsass.org and watch the videos of the kids and watch and get a little queer joy for yourself. Like everyone needs more queer joy in their life. Like watch these kids take control of their lives and move towards a healthier place and believe in themselves. And that's all we can do right now. It really just feels like save as many kids as you fucking can, because it's hard out there. It's hard out there right now.
How, and I'm asking for everybody else and also for me, like how do we get the money to you? Do you guys have a Patreon? You should do a fucking Patreon.
No, so you can donate right at summerofsass.org.
So go to summerofsass.org.
Go to summerofsass.org. Right on the main page, it's donor box. It's a great platform. You can sign up for, you could give us $1. You could give us $1 every month. You can give us $1 every year. You could, whatever you want to do, whatever is within your budget, is how we feel about it. We really want, and if you don't have money, just spread the word. Spreading the word is really as important as anything else, because it not only maybe will get to someone who's going to donate, but it's also might get to some kid who needs to hear that there's some hope. Right. And to me, that's a huge part of why we do this, is to spread that kind of hope and belief that, like, if you dream it, you can do it. Right. And I am a flawed, fucked up human, and we pulled off some good shit. So, like, don't give up,
It's rare that I'll shill for a cause, but folks, if you're listening, how many streaming services do you pay for? Hulu, fucking Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, the Spotify, YouTube, all those subscription services. Think about, what about just signing up for $10 a month at summerofsass.org to sign up for, like, just feeling good about helping fucking human beings for $10 a month.
It feels really good. And then you get like random, you're not going to get a bunch of newsletters. You're not going to get all that, but every now and again, you'll get a good story. You'll show up in your inbox and you'll feel good. Like, it is definitely something that, and to be clear, like, the kids pay rent, right? Like, we subsidize it. We make it affordable. Right. So, like, we're also teaching responsibility. Like, none of this, and I think this is important for people to know, that, like, none of this is a free ride. Like, there is accountability through every step of this program, because that's what happens when you get to live in a mansion with a hot tub, and that's how you make good citizens, is a sense of personal responsibility, a sense of community, and a sense of self-love. And that's what we're trying to really teach these kids. It's not come here and just, like, don't do anything and you can live in this house. It's not that. It's, are you ready to show up for yourself in your community? And if so, we'll help you.
Again, if you're listening at home, I didn't realize there was a hot tub involved. I take back everything that I said.
This was a super high end B&B. So this was like wealthy gay men B&B that someone bought and gave to us. Well, gave us the cash and then we bought it.
Is it too late for me to come out as queer for a summer so I can go and live in your fucking hot tub?
It's not too late, but you are too old for our age group.
I'll be a late life pool boy. We
do need a general maintenance guy.
I can come and
we'll pick out your outfits though.
Oh God.
Have you ever seen But I'm a Cheerleader?
No.
All right, here's your queer homework. You're going to love it. You're going to find the movie But I'm a Cheerleader, and you're going to watch it.
Okay.
And in it, it's a conversion therapy camp. Natasha Lyonne, Clea Duvall, like, this is like late 90s or mid 90s.
Okay.
It's a great movie. And the conversion camp lady's son, that's who I want you to envision how we're going to dress you as our pool boy. Okay. When you watch that movie.
I want you to watch the movie Goon.
Okay.
About a hockey enforcer, and it's about a guy who, like, gets into a bar fight, and then he's drafted by a farm league hockey team because of that. And
because of the bar fight. Oh, I love this movie.
Yeah, and that's how I want you to dress.
All right, deal. Done. I probably already have it.
And then the next question is, it has nothing to do with philanthropy or helping other people. What are you personally doing this year that people can support? Where are you performing? What are you doing? How can we consume and support your shit?
So, KristenBecker.com always, I have a weekly show in P-Town, Fruit Basket, that's going to run all summer. It's a Saturday stand-up show. I have my solo show this year that I'm working on is called Man Pants. And it's going to be kind of me diving into this place in between the genders that I exist in, this weird vagina having, man pant wearing self. And then we're going to do another comedy festival in September. So End of the Earth Comedy is going to come back. I just had a meeting today. So these are the things on the horizons right now. I've got the summer shows coming up. I'm working on a new solo hour. And then there's always Santa Claus at Christmas. I've kind of worked out summer performing. Fall is usually some colleges, and then Christmas time, and then I usually take off January, February from shows, maybe do 1 or 2, and then back at it. I'll be in Memphis on March 25th at Drew's, and then I'll be in Water Valley, Mississippi, which is a suburb of Oxford where Ole Miss is, because there was a young queer person that was killed there this past summer. And I have a pretty good relationship just through Loose in the Bible Belt with the small stand-up scene that's in Oxford, which is a great group of people. And they said they needed to do something to like elevate queer voices. And they asked me if I'd come to Water Valley, Mississippi. So if I go missing, start looking in Water Valley, Mississippi. And if I make it to Memphis the next night, come get drunk with me in Memphis, because that will probably happen at Drew's Bar. It doesn't matter how sober I've been. It doesn't matter what I've done with my life. If I walk into Drew's, I'm going to get drunk with Jen A, and it's going to be great.
That's awesome. Becker, I love you so much. Thank you so much.
I love you, man.
We could have gone for another 4 hours here. I can't wait to see you again.
I'm excited. I'll see you soon. Hopefully. Let me know. You never come up this way though. You're not into the Boston area.
Yeah, no. The last time I booked a show in Boston, it was the spring of 2020, and you know what happened.
I'll come see you somewhere warm.
I created COVID. Thank you so much for doing this, and I'll see if I don't see you anywhere else. I'll see you at Altercation.
Yes, I will see you at Altercation, if not before.
Awesome. All right, take care.
Have a good one. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course. See ya. Folks, thank you so much for listening. I know there's a million podcasts out there. We appreciate you spending your time with us. If you're digging the show, if you're enjoying it, if these conversations move you, make you laugh, annoy you, piss you off, please take a minute to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcast. It helps us grow the show, and it helps other people find it. If you'd like to hear bonus episodes, song demos, just sort of ranting off the cuff conversations, all sorts of different bonus material, writing advice, personal blog posts, and stuff like that, go to patreon.com/Mishka Shabali. We will be having monthly episodes up there with my mom and I answering questions from readers, and there's all kinds of good stuff there. Thank you so much for supporting.